if you're like me, you're probably really invested in self-improvement. You care about improving a lot, you care about becoming better, you care about not staying in the same place as you are. And so you probably stumble upon a lot of YouTube videos, some clips, whatever, that talk about that you should read non-fiction books. I have a lot of non-fiction books. You can also see it in my other videos. I read a lot of non-fiction. But another thing I actually do, even though many self-improvement gurus or whatever tell you that you shouldn't read fiction, I don't think that. The reason I have changed my mind, because I thought that earlier, I thought that you should not read fiction because it's useless. It's a waste of time. You don't get facts, you don't get knowledge. But that is actually false, because you should read fiction, because humans, we understand and we learn based from stories. And which source of books or videos or whatever have stories? Which have that? Fiction books. Sure, I have read a lot of also non-fiction books that have stories or try to have stories in there, but there's another feeling when you read a fiction book, because you get so in-depth into the story, and it's not only just reading and learning about facts or something, because many fiction books have facts or are historically correct or kind of, so obviously not fully, but still. So they are interesting, but that's not the only good part about reading fiction. Another good thing about reading fiction is it improves your vocabulary. It teaches you more words. It teaches you a wider nuance of words, and that's just a really good thing to have. I probably wouldn't speak the level of English I speak today if I wouldn't have read fiction books. Sure, I also watch a lot of YouTube videos and such, which helped me with my pronunciation and my knowledge about English and my vocabulary. Fiction has taught me a lot. I have these fiction books here. These are in English, so I read a lot of books in English. I read in basically all of the languages I know, or I can speak at least pretty good. Another positive of reading a lot of fiction books is that it helps you relax. It helps to relax your mind. If you learn a fact from a non-fiction book, it may fire up your brain. It's like, oh, I should try that in business. Oh, I should try that with my friends tomorrow, or whatever. Your brain fires up. It becomes harder for you to sleep. So that's why fiction books are better, because they calm your mind. You become calmer because it's just a story. It lets you drift away. That's also many times where I have read fiction books before sleeping, because it helps you take your mind off problems that you have in your life. That's obviously also what video games and such do, but in a worse way. But fiction books, you get a wider range of knowledge, more common knowledge, and it helps you think about that. Because if I have read something just before bed, often my mind is still stuck in that loop of reading or that story when I was so invested in it. I get invested in the story because I have a pretty graphic memory, so I can see pictures or I can see visually what I am reading pretty well. So that's why it's really good for me, at least. So that helps me just drift away into sleep. I have also found recently, that's why I have also bought some new books here, that fiction, well, it's obviously easier to get into. You can read a non-fiction book like 5 minutes a time, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, but it's harder, I feel, sometimes, because you have a whole picture that you need to understand. I mean, sure, fiction books also have that, but I don't take that too seriously. I'm not trying to learn anything from fiction. It's more of entertainment, more of stimulating my mind to become better, to relax. I don't have that as the goal as I have with fiction or non-fiction, to understand, to apply, to learn bigger picture, to understand something thoroughly in my brain. So that's why I don't stress so much about reading non-fiction or fiction. So when you have the urge to scroll, at least I feel that it's easier to read or start reading some fiction rather than non-fiction. I'm not gonna grab the non-fiction because I do sometimes take notes and stuff like that. So then I need to take my note things forward, and all of those things, it just becomes too complicated. So then it's just easier to take a fiction book and read that, and you still read. And reading is infinitely times better than scrolling. So just reading a fiction book is so much better. and you also get something done. It's a feeling of accomplishment. You don't have that same negative thoughts when you have scrolled for 5 hours because you're stuck in that. A book can make you stuck. I have many times. It's actually pretty fun when I said, oh, I'm gonna read to page 85, but then when I come to 85, the chapter is not completed, or I still want to read something because I'm in the middle of an event. So then I read, but I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, if I spend more time reading, that's just a good thing, because the more time I spend reading, it's not that I lose that time, it's that I use that time efficiently and wisely. And that's why I find that reading is good, and getting sucked into the good fiction story is much better than scrolling and always having some news story. Oh, there's a cat video, or there's a dog video, and there's whatever. It hurts my brain doing that too much. One good story, you read through it, you understand it, and then you move on. That's just really good for you. For this, you may comment that, well, it's how am I supposed to read a book? I'm standing on the bus stop, I have my phone, it's so easy, it's natural, it's everybody else does it, they look at their phone. How am I supposed to read? Isn't it weird if I grab a book, especially as a teenager or as a young person, because that's just what old people do? Well, you don't need to do that. There are so many applications on the internet that let you read books online, so I can do that instead of scrolling, because it's basically the same clicks, and I make it even more accessible to read a book than even going to scroll. So that's why I just get 5 minutes here and there. You don't think that's much, but after you have done that for 1 hour a day because you were otherwise have scrolled for 1 hour, then you have almost read a book after a week just because of that. Or even you maybe even have read a book. It just replaces a bad habit with something better, and that is actually really good to do. You can't just remove a habit, because if you remove a habit, there will become a vacuum in that place. You have to take something and fill that vacuum, because if you don't do that, this will consume you and you will go back to that habit just to fill that vacuum, because you don't know what otherwise to fill it with. That's where fiction books are really good, to fill a vacuum of addiction, scrolling and such. And as I said with the sleeping part, that the good thing about it is that there is a scientific phenomenon called attention residue. So when you have done something, worked on a task, 20 minutes or something like that after, when you try to switch on to another task, you still have that thing in your brain. Often, not always, but many times, that task, that thing you were supposed to do is stuck in your brain. Even if you have stopped doing that task, it will still be in your brain for at least like 20 minutes or something. That's why the good thing about reading before sleeping is because you have that in your brain, so you sleep easier. This is just my opinion about you should read. Don't be negative about fiction. You can get some of your life's most interesting stories to talk about from fiction books. Because if you have knowledge about many fiction books, especially classics and such, you are much more knowledgeable than the average person that doesn't read this and just says that, oh, fiction books are useless, but then they don't even read in a non-fiction book, they just scroll. So that's just a silly comment that is not worth thinking about.